Hi, nobody. This is going to be a slightly different video. I'm not going to include any links in the description. This is just something that came to my head while listening to Breakcore. And it's about the concept of alternative music in general. Um, the term alternative music has been used in quite a few ways. And the main one, I feel like it's the wrong one. The main one is to describe punk and further derivations, especially towards the pop end of the spectrum of punk and alternative rock, grunge, and its evolutions towards a more poppy sound and new metal. Things like that have been called alternative music, and that's kind of missing the point, in my opinion. Alternative music really means what is outside of the mainstream music spectrum, to say it in a really weird way. So putting genres that are closer to pop than to non-mainstream music as alternative music and not the rest of them is kind of counterproductive. And in terms of definition, alternative music means pretty much everything that isn't pop, and even includes a lot of hip hop, which is something that I've always found hilarious. That metalheads think metalheads and punks and avant-garde fans and people like that say that hip hop is mainstream. That's partly true, only partly. There's a section of hip hop that is in the mainstream, but a lot of the hip hop bands and artists from times past, if people listen to them, it's mostly because they are classics. Just like with jazz and its origins, jazz was an alternative music. It was an alternative form of feeling music and creating it, and it made the whole culture. Now it's a classic. It's a classic genre. It's played in concert halls. Sometimes it's stupid. Sometimes it makes sense. So alternative music could be everything that is not classical music, not folk music, and not mainstream music, not pop music in general. Which leaves us with a whole world of possible explorations and different forms and ways of seeing music and aesthetic and pretty much everything else, culture in general. There's a lot of hip hop, there's a lot of electronic music that isn't mainstream, quite a lot. People seem to feel like electronic music is in the mainstream. Let me assure you, no, it isn't. Most of it isn't. If we are talking about electropop, maybe. Synth pop, some of it. But we're talking about gabber. It's a worldwide phenomenon. It's a well-known genre, but it's not a mainstream genre. It's still in the underground mostly. Um, even even a lot of deathcore and metalcore. Metalcore isn't as mainstream. There are mainstream bands, there are really mainstream bands, but metalcore as a genre isn't. Um, People just feel that way because if we talk about that, then the big four, the thrash big four, are all mainstream. Metallica is, and we all know that, except for some people. Megadeth is quite mainstream, I will say. Slayer is, weirdly enough, quite mainstream. It's the most extreme band out of the four, and it's quite mainstream. Anthrax is quite mainstream, not as much. Um, so it's not a matter of thinking there are bands that are mainstream, so the whole genre is mainstream, or it's mainstream because a lot of people listen to it. A lot of people listen to it throughout the world. We could say that about noise music. Noise has quite a few thousands around the world, and people who don't know that it is a possibility. I started listening to noise music out of pure interest and curiosity because I found out it existed, not because I heard it on the radio. You don't hear much metal, even metalcore in the radio. People who say that don't really listen to the radio that much or listen to really specific shows. I don't know how radio works there. Um, I don't know how to say it in English. Yeah. But you don't hear much metal except in really specific stations, even in its most mainstream forms. Thrash and classic metal in general. Metal from the 70s to the early 80s, it's all mainstream if we think about that. Because all the big bands from that time are still big bands today. Mm, think about how many views has any song from the album 13 on YouTube by Black Sabbath, and it was released in 2013. It's not like it was released in 2006 and we had all this time. No, it's just been up for a few years, and it's been in the millions since pretty early on. Mainstream music is a concept. Music that is widely accepted by a big audience. It's not as much as in the sound. It's not the sound, it's the scene. The people it's targeted towards. Yeah. The people it's targeted to. Um, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say. It's a pretty silly video. I didn't think I would stretch it out to 9 minutes, but yeah, I stumble a lot when I talk. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I guess I'll post something someday, maybe, sometime. If you hear noise in the background, people screaming, things like that, yeah, that's where I live now. I'm going to kill myself.